we watched the Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 trailer. And I guess I'll just tell you how it went. And then we can discuss it. It starts out with a voiceover from number 1. And she says, "Someone once said space is dark and cold. Our job is to bring light, bring warmth, bring life to wherever we go." And this is said over just the faces of the crew flashing on the screen. And then number 1 says, "Is this a hit it situation?" And Pike says, "It's whatever kind of adventure we want it to be." And then the 80s music starts, and the voiceover states, "This crew is a team. The finest Starfleet has to offer." I really hope that's not true.
I suppose compared to Discovery, this crew is better than that crew.
Oh, God.
But who are they trying to fool at this point?
I don't know. It felt like they were trying to rip off the Orville and a few other franchises. Because then the action starts, and then there's a little bit of jokiness from Pike, which really felt like it should have been Seth MacFarlane in the Orville saying what he said.
Or if you go back to The Expanse, the Rocinante, where you had that found family vibe to it, but at least in that case, they built up the relationships between those characters, so when they were joking around, it felt organic, whereas this bantering that they're doing, I guess it's the 3rd year here, they should be in a very...
Well, it should be a very close-knit group at this point.
Or at least familiar with each other. But they're not.
It always feels like they're acting, and maybe it's just that they're all bad actors, but I've seen Anson Mount in other things, and I thought he was decent enough. I've seen Carol Kane, obviously, in other things. Again, decent enough, although I think she's been very typecast at this point. Rebecca Romijn, I've seen her in other things as well, and again, maybe it's just the insipid lines they're giving these actors to read, but it comes off as so disingenuous. And obviously they're acting, but this is beyond bad acting. Like, there's something weird about it. It comes off as so artificial.
It's a cult.
Yeah.
Discovery had that same feeling to it, where toward the end there, when Michael Burnham got the longer hair, and they were all joking around, her and Tilly, and it just felt like it was a cult, to the point where when Rayner was trying to come into that cult, that Tilly had to, like, police the cult to make sure that he fell in line to what the cult needed him to do. And that's what this feels like. It's less aggressive than Michael Burnham and Discovery, but it's like some creepy cult.
Yeah, because then in the trailer, Pelia says, "There is evil in this universe as sure as there is good." And then it's established that James Kirk will have to sit in the captain's chair at some point during some sort of emergency situation. And yeah, it really felt weird. I never really thought of Star Trek as a franchise that would take a concept like evil and just blanket statement it like that.
Well, you have to remember, there is an evil in this universe, and it's called Michael Burnham. So she's making a true statement that there is an evil in this universe, and it is Michael Burnham. There's no stopping Michael Burnham. Michael Burnham can do no wrong. And I realize I'm making a joke here, but I agree. This whole concept of, well, the universe is this dark place that we have to bring happiness and joy to. What are you talking about? Star Trek's never been that. It's been a place of unknown things that you've had to learn about, or maybe foster some sort of government relationships between different planets, but it was never painted as this dark place that you had to bring the happiness people over to make things better.
Well, it gets worse, because then in the trailer, words start popping up on the screen, and the very first thing we're told is new romances, and it's heavily implied that Ortegas has a little brother who is going to be dating Uhura. Yeah, I'm just going to say this. I don't watch Star Trek for romance. Like, what are they doing? Do people actually tune in to watch that?
Why would you put that in a trailer, even if it's in the series? The three things that we came out of last season wondering about. One is the Gorn invasion, which I think they're going to cover here because Pike was talking about some sort of invasion.
But we didn't see a single Gorn in the trailer.
Not that I want to see these Gorn, I'm just saying what they set up. I think the way these xenomorphs that they set up as Gorn is a bad idea. I said that last season, I'm saying it now again this season, but they spent a lot of time setting this thing up. So, one, you've got that. I think they're going to address it, maybe. Two is, what's the deal with Dr. Mbenga? He possibly killed that ambassador. At least it's heavily implied that he did. But nowhere in the trailer are they saying an answers will be found. And then three, and it's a slighter thing, but earlier in last season they talked about number one being an Illyrian. Are they going to cover that again, or is that just a one-off episode and that's the end of that?
I think it was a one-off because they had an agenda they wanted to push, and they were using that, and they accomplished that, and now it's over with. The fact that she's now an Illyrian, that has no bearing on the rest of the story at all.
Because I think most people who are older school Trek fans, based on last season, the biggest question we have is, are we going to find out if Dr. Mbenga has to face any consequences for what he did? Because what he did was left open to, can you just kill people without any consequences, including this was a Klingon ambassador of sorts, and you can just get away with that? It's not a big deal. I think most of us are waiting to see that, and this season may cover that. But what I'm saying is, in this trailer, nobody that I know, nobody was saying, oh, I certainly hope there's new romances in this next season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Oh, and they also showed, it looked like Captain Battelle was sitting there with Pike and that they were holding each other. Yeah, how did that work?
We had a cliffhanger at the end of last season.
She was carrying a Gorn baby, but it looked like she was just fine, so that cliffhanger at the end wasn't addressed in this trailer. And one would have thought that they would have showed something to show some sort of continuity from last season, because usually you leave somebody on a cliffhanger because that's an enticement to come back, and they didn't give us any bait as far as, hey, we're going to follow up on this, come watch this. Nothing.
And they might do that in the episodes, but this is a trailer. Shouldn't the trailer be something that makes somebody want to watch this? What I think their problem is, I think every season of all of these Kurtzman shows, they always seem to reboot it in some way because they can't get the audience that they're looking for. And by looking for, I just mean numbers at this point, because I'm not sure we get great numbers watching this stuff. So I think they're just making a general trailer to try to get new audiences in. Even the ones that may have jumped on board last season to watch this, you watch this trailer, it's like, wait a minute, you left us on a cliffhanger. Dr. Mbenga, we don't know what's going on there. And the trailer didn't service any of that. It kind of touched on maybe we'll deal with the Gorn invasion, but we still don't know that. He said an invasion. Was it the Gorn? I'm assuming so. Let's hope they don't introduce another invasion, because I really don't need that.
Well, and then New Adventures flashes on the screen, and the imagery that they gave with that was a bunch of fighting, a bunch of running around, explosions, phaser blasts. That's an adventure?
I think there were people punching, too.
Oh, that happened after New Worlds finally flashed on the screen, that there was a bunch of punching. That made no sense to me whatsoever. In that little scene, there was the fighting, and then Uhura tells Ortegas' brother, we're going to find our way out of here together. They also showed Spock dancing with somebody, and I'm like, well, who the hell is that? I mean, was it T'Pring? Was he dancing with, I don't know, La'an? It was somebody with long dark hair, but it was so distant that you couldn't see who she was. What does that have to do with fighting and New Worlds? I don't know.
Well, fighting in New Worlds, that's pretty much Kurtzman's trick. Look at Discovery. Discovery was essentially based around a Klingon war, and it was fight, war crime, war crime, war crime, and then we don't talk about the war crimes anymore.
Yeah, and then Scotty is saying something, it's 1 in 1,000, we get it done right or don't blow ourselves up along the way.
So why is Scotty still on this ship?
I don't know. And then, Pike says to him, I like those odds. We'll just turn it off before we blow up. And they turned it into a joke, which again, like I said, it felt very much like the Orville. Like this was something that should have been taking place with Seth MacFarlane at the helm, not Anson Mount as Pike. So many things are just so wrong about this.
I'm trying to remember in the cage, I don't remember Scotty being there yet. So is Scotty just going to hang around for a while before they get rid of him? Going back to Captain Battelle, they showed her in several scenes. Was that just the first episode after the cliffhanger is resolved? Or is she now, because she doesn't have a ship, she's just going to hang around on the ship with Pike, so they just added her character to the crew now?
It kind of looks that way.
I have nothing against the character, but at the same time, there's nothing really good about her either.
Well, it seemed like last season they didn't really know what to do with her. They had her as a starship captain, but they also had her prosecuting Una in that Illyrian episode. And then at the end, she was taking, I guess, vaccinations to that planet, and that's where the Gorn got them. So she's pregnant with a Gorn baby. I just don't think that they knew really what to do with her. Because there was always tension between her and Pike. It was a weird relationship. It never felt like they were actually in love with each other. There was no chemistry between the two. And now it sounds like, well, it looks like from the trailer that she's, going to be hanging around the ship. I guess she's no longer pregnant with a Gorn. And like you just pointed out, without her own ship, what is she doing? Just on vacation hanging out there? Is she a new member of the crew? What's going on? I mean, they didn't know what to do with her last season. And I'm afraid they're probably going to do the same thing this season. They have no idea what to actually do with her, but they want Pike to have a love interest because they're so focused on this romance crap. So we're stuck with her.
And they had to show Pike wearing his cooking apron.
Oh, God.
So we've been complaining as a group, as a cohort here, about could we get Pike out of the kitchen and actually get him on the bridge doing captain stuff? And maybe he will be. Maybe this is just a one-off scene. But why would you put it in the trailer? There's already people like myself that don't want to see Pike doing that, and then you put it in the trailer. And the critique we're making here is about the trailer, because we haven't seen Season 3 yet, so we don't know what the actual content of Season 3 is. But this trailer did nothing to make me want to watch this series other than we're going to do it for the channel. Because I don't want to watch some series based around new romances. Isn't that a line from the Love Boat song? I mean, is this going to be the Love Boat now? I'm not saying this to necessarily make fun of it, but this series, I don't know what sort of group it's appealing to. Because nothing in this trailer interested me at all, like not even in the slightest.
And then at the very end, we have a weird scene where Spock is telling a Vulcan to give him 5.
5. Now, down low.
Why would you do that?
Because you are too slow.
And it was like an uncomfortable ripoff of that scene in Terminator 2 when John Connor does the same thing to the Terminator.
Okay, that's good. Up high. 5 low. Too slow.
Again, it didn't look like homage to me. It felt really weird, and it felt like a ripoff.
And that was the last thing in the trailer.
Well, almost. The very last thing was Pike laughing. And it made it seem like he was laughing at that. The two scenes, it didn't look like he was in the same scene as that, but the way that the trailer was cut and spliced together, it made it seem like he was laughing about that.
And that wasn't funny. The Spock Terminator 2 ripoff wasn't funny. We were both cringing as we were watching it, and then it ended, and this is how you're ending the trailer? This is your strong point that you're going to leave the audience with, waiting for July for the new season to start up?
Yeah, it was cringe.
I can't judge the series yet, the season 3.
No, but it's not looking good.
But I can judge the trailer. This trailer was put together incompetently, because a trailer is supposed to get you to want to watch the product. And this thing did nothing. Any of the questions I had, they didn't answer any of them in the trailer to say, well, we're not going to give you the full answer, but look, we are going to address them. And then starting out the trailer saying, well, space is this cold, dark place, but we go around bringing happiness, or something like that. And then you saw these bizarre compilation of people smiling weird at the camera. That didn't warm me up to what they were doing here either.
Nope. Like you pointed out, it looked like a cult.
Yeah, like this was some promotional video for, hey, join the cult. And they put it up on a YouTube channel to like get new people to join their cult. Got a link to a PayPal, just give them some money and you can join their cult. I didn't see anything here that makes me want to watch this. This looks like a dying franchise, a dying series. And rumor has it, there's 2 more seasons? Not this season and 2 more, so they're supposed to have 5 seasons?
I don't think so.
I don't even see how they get through this, because what this feels like to me, we just got done doing Ncuti Gatwa's last season of Doctor Who, which probably is going to be the last season of Doctor Who for quite a while. And that's what this feels like. This kind of trailer feels like they're going to limp across the finish line, and there's going to be no reason or impetus to go into season 4. And then they've got this Starfleet Academy thing that they're going to fire up. And then there's rumors out there on the internet about how there's been some holdup on the purchasing because they have to get rid of Kurtzman. And it's like, well, if you're going to make 2 more seasons of this, and then you've got a Starfleet Academy, those don't match up at all. You're already killing this brand, and then it's going to continue being killed. Because I don't know how this goes on. What story could they possibly tell, not only this season, but in 2 more seasons? What could they possibly do that would keep this franchise alive? It's already on life support as it is. I'm going to have to force myself to watch this season. And I don't think it's going to be as bad as Doctor Who, but I think it's going to be boring. That's mostly what I'm worried about, is this is going to be so profoundly boring. I do not want to watch new romances. I'm sorry, I just don't watch science fiction shows for romance. So that tells me this is not meant for me. I am not the core audience, even though I've watched all the iterations of Star Trek. But this one is not going to be there. This is like when Michael Burnham and Ash, during that Klingon war, were having discussions about, oh, I wish the war wouldn't end so that we can have this love. And, well, is this the Gorn War equivalent of that? And there's going to be some weird romance happening with the backdrop of that war? I don't want to watch romance. I don't want to watch that. I didn't like it when Deanna and Worf got together in TNG. I didn't care about Paris and B'Elanna. I didn't care about Jadzia and Worf. I just didn't care. I'm not saying that they were necessarily bad. I just didn't care about them. That's not why I watch Star Trek. To go into some sort of soap opera. That's not why I watch it. But now it looks like romance, at least Uhura's going to have a romantic thing going on. And Batel is on the Enterprise for any extended time. We're going to have to deal with Pike and Batel now.
Ugh. And theirs is the worst, because like I said, there is no chemistry between the two. It feels so forced. It's so painful to watch.
Well, he appears to be a male equivalent of a bimbo.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what she would see in this guy. He seems stupid. Like, he's overly stupid. I don't know why she would be interested in him. You'd need somebody that's duller than her to find anything in common with Pike. This Pike, not Pike as it's supposed to be, but this Pike, played by Anson Mount, is stupid. He's a dullard. He's a simpleton. But okay. And I really don't need to see Uhura having a romance. I don't need to see anybody having a romance. Go out there and explore new worlds and anomalies. We don't need a war. I had enough of war between the Dominion in Deep Space Nine, the Xindi in Enterprise, then the Klingons revisited in Discovery, a war there, and now whatever this Gorn thing is, I'm done with war. Can't you just do something differently? That's not why I watch Star Trek. There are many space shows I do watch that are about war, but this is not a franchise that I usually associate with war. But after what I just enumerated, maybe I should just admit Star Trek is a series about space wars. That's what Star Trek is. Occasionally they would add some other types of stories, but what did Pike say in this episode? Something like, or in response to, is this a hit it moment? Well, it's whatever you want it to be. Yeah, I wish this series was a better series, not based around romance and war. That's what I wish it was. But I'm not sure I'm going to get my wish. Am I looking forward to this? No.
I just wish that there was a show out there that was about exploration and not weird interpersonal relationships. I'm so over that. Just sick of it.
When Star Trek was doing things I liked, then I wouldn't mind them experimenting with some other stuff. It's like I said about that musical episode last season. Had Strange New Worlds told proper Star Trek stories, then them having a let's take a break and have some fun musical episode, I probably would have went along with it if it would have been a better thing than what they did do. But I would have been like, okay, they're experimenting. They've proven their brand, so they can experiment. Well, this franchise has not shown that it can make proper Star Trek. So why are you trying to make romantic stuff when you can't even make proper Star Trek? Even their action scenes, their spaceship fights, really, with the technology of 2025, or I guess going back to previous seasons, but 2020s. And when you think of the best starship battles in Star Trek television history, do you think of any of the Kurtzman stuff being anywhere near there? Because most of the best starship battles in Star Trek were from Deep Space Nine in the 1990s. So they don't even do spaceship battles very well. I just don't get this. I don't understand what they're doing. And if the rumors are true and we've got this season and 2 more seasons of this Strange New Worlds, how? They're out of gas. They have no more energy to do anything. This trailer was indicative of a dying franchise that they went through the very basics to give you a trailer to say, look, new crap's coming up in July. Because that's essentially when the trailer was done, that's what I said this trailer was. It just told me new crap was coming up in July.
Maybe we'll get lucky and Paramount Plus will just abruptly shut down and we'll be saved from this crap.
I cannot recommend to anybody to watch this. I don't want to watch this. Not that I'm hating on it like I did with Discovery, because Discovery at the end there, that was being forced to watch that because I hated Discovery at the end. But this is just going to be boring, and there are people out there that say, well, this is the best of the Kurtzman Trek. I mean, maybe. I personally think that that was Prodigy, because we actually did watch some episodes of Prodigy. And of all the Kurtzman Treks, Prodigy was the closest to Star Trek, and it had problems. I'm not saying it didn't.
Yeah, I didn't finish the second season.
But
first season was good, though.
But at least it was the closest to Star Trek. Lower Decks was good at making fun of TNG Star Trek, but lots of people like that, I guess. So you want to make fun of Star Trek, I guess go ahead and do that, Rick and Morty style. But Prodigy at least took the material seriously, and they were trying to tell Star Trek stories. It was based around a child's point of view, or a set of children's point of view. But it's the closest to Star Trek that Kurtzman's group has ever come around with. And I don't even think he was messing around. I think that was a Nickelodeon series. So I don't even think Kurtzman was involved with Prodigy. Because I think what McMahon was the one doing Lower Decks. And like I said, I didn't care for that. But Prodigy, we haven't done a review because I don't know if we liked it enough to do a review.
Well, plus it was a kids' show.
But at least it felt like they were trying to make something close to Star Trek. It kept my attention in season 1. Did we start season 2? I think
We did. We watched a few episodes of season 2. I don't remember how far we got, but we just stopped watching because it didn't have the same feel that season 1 did, unfortunately. And we just never picked it back up again.
And then you have this, which I guess from a live action point of view, this is probably the least offensive. It's not like Discovery, which actively every week when they were doing an episode was showing their dislike for the franchise. So Strange New Worlds doesn't do that so far. But I also don't think they know what they're doing. They're not making Star Trek. They're just making this bland space soap opera.
We've been going back and watching people react to Babylon 5. It's so nice to see people reacting to the show for the first time and just how surprised they are and how into it they get. And it just really drives home how superior that was to what we're watching now.
That was 1990s. I think that started in, 93? We're in 2025.
Yeah, I just don't understand how everything got to be so crappy. The writing is just so bad. Because that's the crux of it. It's the writing. I think a lot of these actors could be doing a much better job if they were given proper scripts.
Kurtzman and his people need to leave.
Well, and the thing about Kurtzman is that I've seen what he did writing for Jack of All Trades, which was a Bruce Campbell show, and I really enjoyed what he did there. It was jokey, it was a bit off color, it was fun. And he did the same writing for Hercules. But what he's been doing for several years now, this is awful. It makes me wonder if he even enjoys writing anymore. Because this is just garbage compared to what he used to do before. Granted, yeah, he wasn't writing some really existential stuff for Hercules and then, a Bruce Campbell show. But at least it was fun. At least when you watched it, you felt good and you were entertained. This is just crap.
It's a chore to watch.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's probably a chore to write as well. I can't imagine that he's happy writing this crap. But then again, you know what? Maybe the paycheck makes up for that.
My hope is that this is the last season of Strange New Worlds and the last season of Kurtzman Trek. But then I'm hearing that they're filming that Starfleet Academy.
I hope that never sees the light of day.
And if Section 31 was as bad as it was, why are we to think that Starfleet Academy is going to be any better than Section 31 was?
I have a feeling that might actually end up being the worst one of all, aside from Discovery, which obviously that was so full of war crimes that takes the cake over everything. But I think as far as how poorly written and how sappy and just stupid, I think that Starfleet Academy is going to come in right after that. Cult weird.
People are watching this. Not a lot of people, but there are people watching this. I've even seen people defend Strange New Worlds. And I would argue you're only defending it because compared to Discovery, it's better than Discovery. I think most people admit it's better than Discovery. But it's not good. Just because you're better than garbage doesn't mean you yourself aren't garbage. You're just less garbage. Unless this next season is not defined in that trailer, then this season looks at best to be boring, at worst to be bad. I don't see a permutation here unless this trailer was completely misleading on what they're going to cover in season 3. I don't see how this season is anything but, at best, it is new material. While I'm scrolling on my phone, I'll have it on in the background, but that's all it's good for, is that. That is what Star Trek is now.
Well, they don't seem like professionals. They seem like they're high school students, maybe early college at best, as far as their behavior goes. The partying that they do, and then the pairing off, the romance crap, all the overdramatic relationships. It just seems so immature.
Well, what it reminds me of is, and this goes back to JJ Trek in 2009, but Starfleet Academy used to be, they took the best of the best. And then to get through Starfleet Academy was extremely hard to do. But starting in 2009, you just sign up like it's the U.S. Army and you're an enlisted man, and then they do all the shenanigans that the enlisted guys are known for in the Army, and that's Star Trek. That's Starfleet now. That's what is populating Starfleet. And Lower Decks, that's one of the reasons that I can't stand it, is the lead character, Mariner, is a perfect poster child for what is wrong with this latest iteration of Star Trek. That's why when people say they like Lower Decks, I get the idea that they're getting references correct, which for Kurtzman is a big deal, but they're making fun of Star Trek, and that's all you want to do is sit around and make fun of it. That's a criticism we made of Doctor Who this season. That last 2-part episode of this past season is it seemed like Russell Davies, all he was doing was making fun of Doctor Who. This just seems like this whole franchise is making fun of Star Trek or trying to make it something that it's not. It's embarrassed of what Star Trek was, and they're trying to get away from it, yet they bring in characters like Scotty, or they have the iconography a little bit closer in Lower Decks to what proper Star Trek should be, and they think that's enough, but then you watch it and go, but Mariner's like in every episode, and she's as bad as any of these Kurtzman Trek characters can be. But somehow people, they will defend Lower Decks. I've seen this on Reddit. I've seen this on multiple social media sites. And I've seen people defend Strange New Worlds the same way. I'm not defending it. I don't know what this season's going to bring, but I am no longer affiliated as a fan with what is calling itself Star Trek. I watch this out of obligation to the channel. I used to watch Star Trek because I enjoyed it, and it enriched me every week watching it. Some episodes more than others, but I usually got something out of every episode. Nope. I'm watching this just to fulfill my duty on this channel. If I get surprised and it turns good, you'll hear it during our reviews, but based on the material we've seen for 2 seasons, and I haven't heard of any major turnover in writing, because I think they actually filmed this season right after season 2, and then it was halted for a while when they had that writer's strike. But I don't think they took a breath in between in order to get feedback on what was going right and what was going wrong. Because one of the things I don't like is Pelia. I do not like that character. It seemed like maybe with Carol Kane this could have worked. Nah. Pelia is an annoying character. When she's on the screen, she just annoys me. I grit my teeth. It's not a good experience. And I don't know what they're going to do with Scotty. Is he just going to be some joke where he's, oh, the ship's going to blow up any minute now. We're going to... All the memes that people would know about Scotty from TOS.
It's all exaggerated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, Scotty didn't do anything else.
It's all for comedic effect. That's what this is.
And that's why it's hard to like this, because they don't take the material seriously, and I think they're making fun of Star Trek. The Orville, which were jokes galore in that show, but you could tell that Seth and his people took Star Trek concepts seriously. They would joke around with it, but I never got the idea that they were making that series out of any sort of attempt at just smearing the crap out of Star Trek. I think the closest we got was when they introduced that one-off tardigrade character who was selling drugs and pornography to Bortus. And I think that was only making fun of Star Trek Discovery in the sense of they had that tardigrade in season 1 that they...
We're torturing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the only time I ever got any Seth with any sort of fangs out trying to attack something called Star Trek. That was the only time. Every other time, he'd play around with ideas, but you could tell he was taking the Star Trek basis for what he was doing and he was homaging stuff versus just ripping on it.
Yeah, and speaking of Seth MacFarlane, I don't know if the Naked Gun movies are something that you guys get into, but there's going to be a new one coming out starring Liam Neeson, and Seth MacFarlane is the producer on the film. And the trailer I saw for that actually looked pretty funny. So that might be something worth watching instead of Strange New Worlds. Also, I don't know where all of you are, but I know this weekend where I am, the Regal Cinemas here, they're going to be showing Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, when Indiana Jones didn't suck. So if you're interested in that, if you have local cinemas that are showing it, there you go. You can go see that as well this fall. I'm looking forward to Jaws being in the theater again, and definitely going to go see that. So, if you look hard, there are a few things. Granted, most of it is going to be old stuff, not new stuff. But sometimes it's nice to visit with an old friend. And that's fully what I intend to do, is take advantage of what little there is that's available to entertain us this summer. And not this crap.
But we're going to have to watch this crap.
Oh, yes. We will be watching this crap because obviously we watch it so you don't have to. But my recommendation is, you know what? Go out and watch something else. We'll take care of this. Don't worry about this crap. You can just, listen to our podcast, watch our videos, or, get it from some other YouTuber. But don't waste your time watching this.
Yeah, don't give them a subscription and a view count.
Yeah.
We'll take the bullet and tell you what's going on, so at least you can say, yep, I got the basics of what was in the episode. Next.
Exactly.
Because same recommendation I was making for people with the other Star Trek series, like Discovery. Nobody should have watched Discovery voluntarily. Only if you were forced to watch Discovery should you have watched it. This is better than Discovery. I want to make clear that I'm not putting this at the same level as Discovery, but it's only slightly better. It is better, but it's not as better as people are thinking. It's the same people who say Terry Matalas' season 3 of Picard was so much better. It's like, no, it wasn't so much better. They had better iconography in the original actors, but then if you look at what those characters were doing, I'm not sure it was any better, and in some ways it was worse by what they were doing to those legacy characters.
Exactly. Character assassination, in my opinion, that made it worse.
But you can't get people to see that. I don't know if they just don't pay attention to what they're watching, and they just want to live in the nostalgia moment, but that's the same thing we're dealing with Strange New Worlds. It's, oh, look, there's Kirk. It's like, no, that's Ace Ventura. That's not Kirk. And then I refuse to call the security chief on here La'an because I call her Discount Drummer because she looks like she's a ripoff of Kamina Drummer from The Expanse. Nothing against the actress. She could do really well with a character in a different series. So was it Christina Chong, I think is her name? Nothing against the actress, but she's Discount Drummer to me because that's the level of thought that they put in to what they were doing on the show.
Like I said, it all comes back to the writing. I think a lot of the actors on this show, if handed proper scripts, I think they could do a really good job. But what they're having to read is just such garbage. Especially, you look at Captain Pike and just the way he's been just neutered.
Look at his hair.
Oh my God.
He looks like
Johnny Bravo.
Johnny Bravo. He looks like a cartoon character. An actual, literal cartoon character.
He looks like Johnny Bravo. He really does. That hairdo. I don't even know what to say.
So even when you just see a still of him on the screen and he's not even saying any lines, he looks so stupid.
Yeah.
I guess we should maybe think about wrapping this up because it's just a trailer. I can't even say I was disappointed watching this trailer because I wasn't expecting much. That Doctor Who season really ground me down and I knew this wasn't going to be any better. But I expected at least them to try to put in the trailer stuff that I cared about from season 2. Cared about's probably being too strong. Stuff that they introduced that I'd like to see what happened as far as resolution. Dr. M'Benga being one of the biggest ones.
That's what surprised me, the lack of continuity. They didn't show us anything to try to bait us into watching based on how season 2 ended. It's like a blank slate, and that was really weird. Because one would have thought that they would have dangled something in front of you that they're going to address the cliffhanger, but there was nothing there about that. So, weird.
Weird.
Weird trailer. Yeah. I don't even know what to say beyond this. This just didn't look good.
July 17th, I think, is when the first episode of season 3 is going to start. Stick around the channel for that. We will cover it. And between then and now, we'll try to get other things out there just to keep the channel active and cover stuff that we actually like. So we're working on something right now in addition to our scripted thing that we're writing ourselves. Hopefully between now and Strange New Worlds, we'll get some stuff out there to at least build up our confidence that we can make it through season 3 of Strange New Worlds.
Yay, a whole month of doing things we like before Strange New Worlds starts. Well, on that note,
until next time,
take care.